Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 10th day of February 2025, and welcome to our show today. Today I've got Vicky Davis on with the Technocratic Tyranny. Warren Carpenter was going to be on this morning, and there is some very serious stuff going on in Michigan, which is not quite broken into the news cycle yet. So we're going to be bringing this. We're going to be bringing this out in front of everybody. But right now, I think he had a family emergency to go to. And so I'm going to see if he can come back on tomorrow instead of today, because it's just kind of happened. So, but we're going to be talking about this and about many other things, because the news cycle seems to keep us going like this. Let's talk about that a minute. I'm going to bring Vicky on. Morning, Vicky. How you doing?
Good morning. Fine, thank you. Yeah, it's almost too much to really keep up with. You almost need a team monitoring everything, because it's just, it's a blitzkrieg.
Well, you guys all out there are my team, because it's amazing how many really smart people jump on my Telegram space and my X space and that sort of thing and share what they know. I mean, when we go forward with this, we're literally working together as we the people. If someone... I've got so many questions out there. And quite honestly, I got into it a little bit with Michonne Maddock this week on X, and it needed to happen, because there are people that are, if you look at their behavior and what they do, you've got to realize that these people are part of the establishment. There's no two ways about it. So we can't ignore that. And it doesn't matter who it is. I'll call anybody out for bad behavior. If President Trump did something wrong, because of respect for him, and he's earned the respect, I would write him a letter. I would go to him and say, hey, you may not know this, but there's a problem with this, and this is why. And that's actually biblical. You go to people and you tell them first, and then if that doesn't work, you go out in public. But if somebody hasn't earned your trust, and in the way that I don't know, that puts him in a category of untrustfulness. Like if James Comey came to me and told me something, it would be just, it's already over. Okay. I wouldn't trust him. And so, because he was changing the spelling on his name, from Comey to Corny. That's an FBI trick. So when I was looking up stuff on Mishannon, or whatever, she's got it listed in all different ways in Laura, it makes me ask questions, because this is a known FBI type trick to hide things. Okay, why wouldn't you just put your name the way it's spelled out there? Why would you change your spelling on things? This happens all the time, and if you research a little bit, you can see that sort of thing. But I will literally call out anyone. I don't care who they are. I'll give them a chance to say, oh, geez, I made a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. I make mistakes. I love it when people call me up when I'm wrong about something, because I want to be right. I want to be truthful, right? So when somebody calls you out because maybe you just didn't know or have all the information, that's a person that really cares about you, cares enough to correct you when you're wrong. And bravo to all those people who are brave enough to do that. So, as we go through this process, we need to be very aware of the fact that there's a lot of people still learning, but then there's also that category of people who they know damn well what they're doing. And they're using things like, oh, no, this person spoke mean to me and blah, blah, blah. No, maybe it's just the truth and it needed to be brought to light.
Yeah, the people, they seem to have been conditioned to believe that nobody should ever say anything that hurts their feelings. Well, sorry, sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you need a wake-up call, and the only way to do that is to just, hit you right between the eyes with the truth. And when I hear things from people that I don't believe are true, I go research it myself. Why are they saying this? And there might be a good reason, or maybe they're right. Maybe I misunderstood something. I mean, who knows? All kinds of things. But if you hear something you think is wrong, go research it. That's what you do.
But realize that people are really people that have a criminal or a mindset that's a psychopathic type mindset. They don't care. They're not like the rest of us who actually very deeply care. They don't. They use people, they use situations to get in their mind what makes them better. So they've always got this thing going on all the time. Who's better than who? It's a competition. We're never on, it's always who's climbed on top of somebody else. I call it an orphanage mentality. And I actually understand that very well because I did adopt my one daughter from an orphanage who is very mentally ill, very much has some abandonment things that happened to her. It was horrible. And you can watch the behavior of people that are in that mindset. They will literally crawl on top of anyone to either fulfill something they've got made up in their head of what makes a person a better person, instead of seeing everybody kind of is all the same. We're kind of all the same, and we're all trying to survive and such. But that's not how a psychopath mind works at all. They just don't care, and they'll use anybody. They see people as pawns. They see people as assets or materials to use to fulfill what they have in their mind or their goals, right? Well, the rest of us don't really act. We don't really think that way. We if you're a true human being, I'll say it, you see people with a heart of empathy and compassion. Now, it doesn't mean that you're always, the sucker, the person that's peddling Gentile Jesus with a lamb on his foot. Sometimes it's that you're, in fact, a very to the point warrior to knock down the lies. And I'll give you an example. I like stories. I have a lot of stories on tenants. And this is I would love to publish a book on this because it would shock people to their core on what people are capable of. I'm not kidding you. People are capable of doing horrible, horrible things. We had one tenant, very nice man, very, very nice man. And he had a roommate that he took in to share the space with. This roommate was kind of deranged. I'll just say that, very, very deranged. The first roommate is someone we had as a tenant for years and years and years. Nice, responsible individual, right? So this tenant that moved in with him actually would continue to get mad at him and say, I'm going to cut you, and this kind of nonsense, which I was like, who the hell talks like this, right? But what this roommate ended up doing is the original tenant had a cat that he absolutely loved this cat. The roommate basically enabled the cat to get outside and either get lost or die. The first roommate was able to rescue the cat, bring it back in, and keep it safe. And he also did things like taking his keys in the middle of the night, throwing it in the front seat of his roommate's unlocked car, hoping someone would steal it. Now, when you start thinking about that kind of absolute deranged mental illness, and then as an individual person, and now put it into an organized crime scenario, which is what we have going on in our government, we've got real problems. And that's why when we see all this USAID money going to everywhere except the American people, they just see us as worthless feeders, as farm animals to either have as a cash crop, either for our labor, our organs, our children, our land, whatever else it may be. They don't care. I could fill 20 shows with bad tenant stories. And then, of course, they all get online and they blast the landlords for being horrible people. And the landlords don't say anything. We just sit there, smile and wave, boys, make sure that they're evicted and move on. We did have an apartment recently. They were human trafficking and child trafficking in that apartment. We could see it. We called the police. We called all of the oversight agencies to deal with it, and all of them turned a blind eye to this. So we ended up finally getting them out of there, getting them out of there, And when we got in there, there were mattresses everywhere, and you can't stop it if you are a landlord because of the equal housing, fair housing rules out there. They're going to get in. You can do the best you can to eliminate this, but the problem isn't with landlords or anything like that. It is with these oversight, pity me, receiving all kinds of aid from U.S. aid and wherever the hell else they're money laundering it to keep these pity me agencies like equal housing, fair housing, to give people who are criminals a leg up or no accountability, so they can get into our communities and wreak all kinds of havoc. That's what's going on. They're all part of it. They're enabling these people to stay in our communities. And if you don't think they're in your community, I'm going to tell you this right now. They're in every community. There's so much bad stuff going on that's been sanitized from the average person's purview that they can't even realize. They don't even realize that it's going on underneath their noses. Years ago, I was getting my hair done at this salon, and there was a beautiful, beautiful little new stylist that was there. And shortly after I was there, I found out that her husband committed suicide. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then found out later that it was because he got caught for child sex and pornography and such. And I'm like, he had you wouldn't know that this is going on. His wife was absolutely just the most darling young woman you've ever seen. She's just darling. And to see this kind of stuff that's going on right be in front of our faces, come on, everybody needs to wake up a little bit. And if you see something, say something. One person can't do it all. We have to do it together. And I think that's what we're seeing.
Yeah. Well, I think when Bush announced the New World Order, I think that was like the beginning of breaking down the law to break down our society so that they could bring in the New World Order. And the New World Order is a world of open borders, globalization. We're all part of one big human family, except we're not.
We're not. They're using us as their supply line. And I think what we've been talking about, Jonathan Cagle, is how they've commandeered and they've grabbed the economic structure of the United States, all of our supply lines, all of the corporations that own everything and have received personhood by that absolute disastrous Citizens United, which gave them the abilities to be a person, the right of a person, instead of this. I'm going to tell everybody, and thank God for President Trump, the rightful president of the United States. And to that, we all wave our flags, say thank you, President Trump, and all the good guys that are standing with him, that they're reversing, exposing, and they're going to reverse all of this. And I got a feeling that Gitmo is been expanded, but it's going to expand more, or the seats are going to be, rotated through a little quicker than what they have been, because there's so many people involved in this. I mean, it's crazy. It's right from the top to the bottom. It's in your townships. It's in your counties. It's in your townships. It's all one big, happy global crime syndicate family. And they prey on weak and stupid people. They'll wave that dollar in front of them instead of, you can be all that. Did the same thing to Jesus when Jesus was here. Satan was willing to give him the world and he would have none of it. And I think that's incumbent upon each one of us to make that decision that we're not for sale. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's kind of amazing to me, because growing up in the 60s, and the people, the society, the communities, they were really human. They were centered on their town, and they wanted their town to be better. and they did things, to give children, young people, things to do, like building ballparks, so for the Little League, and they would all get together and do it. They didn't hire a contractor to do it. All the fathers did it. And
you made food, and you brought food to people that were sick. You actually reached out so that no one was alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but over time, I didn't see it as it was happening, but as I started looking back and remembering, I can see the decay in our society, in our culture, in everything. And I believe it's intentional warfare. It's asymmetric warfare. It's warfare on the people. It's not war with militaries. And and that's what USAID was doing, right? They
Absolutely.
were agitating and getting whatever the minority communities were, and I don't mean by that, I don't mean Black or Hispanic or something like that, but every country has its minorities. I even found out that the Japanese have a minority, which I had no clue, I thought the Japanese were just one monolithic people, but they're not.
India's the same way. When I was in India, it was, I'm gonna tell you that something that was actually said to me in India when I adopted my daughter. She's South Indian, so she's real small and she's very dark, right? Mm-hmm. Where we were staying, I actually had some of the housekeepers in the hotel where we were staying. They were great to me until my daughter was there, and they would sit there and look at me and do like a fake spit, like that, and say Americans and darkies, and then spit towards me.
Ew.
And I mean that I'm not kidding you. That actually happened to me, and the disdain for that was amazing. But in retrospect, at the time, I had no clue that human trafficking was going on. Zero. I mean, I'm just a mom raising kids, homeschooling kids, going, this little girl needs surgery to help her, and she was so sick, and nobody wanted her because she was just so disabled. And I saw this as a really good thing to do. I had no idea. So in retrospect, kind of now I wonder if that's that they'd already seen this kind of stuff, and maybe that's what they were thinking. But on the flip side, there's definitely a culture there. When they say that the caste system is gone, it is not gone. It wasn't gone when I was there in any way, shape, or form. People are like that. People are pretty much the same everywhere. There's always this stuff going on all the time. And my dad used to say it about the West Michigan culture. He said, yeah, it's great in West Michigan. He said the Dutchies love you unless, as long as they're doing better than you are, so they can look down on you. And I'm like, I think it's kind of funny now because it's just human nature. Mm-hmm. It's a fallen human nature. If you're looking at other people, and I'm part Dutch, so if you're going to say I'm speaking out against the Dutch, just go screw yourself, But it's like when. I'm a mutt. I am a European mutt. That's all you can say. I've got to have a little bit of everything in me, right? And so, but the point being is that when people have a fallen nature, they constantly see people as either someone to use. You'll see them try to get close to people that have money, power, or influence, and they think it's if they sit next to that person, that gives them access to more things, right? See it all.
It gives them status.
Gives them status, and their mindset is either I'm going to try to take what you have, use what you have, or use what you have to do favors for my friends. I've had a little bit of success in my life. I see it all the time. 97% of the people I meet are in that category. That's the honest to God truth. And you get pretty good at vetting people and figuring who they are, what their true intentions are, or if they're just using people for some sort of a emotional payback for themselves to make them feel better about that. Oh, I'm standing with this person. I'm standing with that. I really don't give a shit. I just don't. I'd honestly rather be shoveling horse manure in my barn than almost anything on the planet, because I actually see everybody as the same. I would, when I used to travel a lot, and if I was stuck in one place, I get to know the housekeeping staff. They were wonderful. We had a great time talking about stuff, and we'd have lunch together once in a while and such. Just because if you're alone somewhere and you're staying somewhere for like months on end, you kind of get to know the people who are actually working. And I never really liked hanging out with people that are just in suits. You know, it just seems kind of silly to me. I mean, people are the same. There's good people in all, no matter what they look like on the outside. There's good people and bad people wherever you look. And when you look at the outside packaging and who they are and how much, it's highly deceptive, and it's kind of stupid. It's a dumb metric, right? Some of the people who are the most humble and people overlook them all the time are some of the greatest human beings I've ever met in my life. So I'd rather spend time with them, honestly. Mm-hmm. They're not in it for the glory. They're not in it for the glory. They're in it just because they kind of quietly want to go about their business and just make the world a better place. Now, those are the real heroes in life, right? Those are truly the heroes.
I listened to an interview with one British guy, and he was, I don't know that he was part of the royal family in any way, but he was an important person. And he said it used to be that there wasn't as much difference between the poor people and the middle or upper class people because of education. But when you degrade the education of the lower classes, then you can't have a peer-to-peer conversation with them. And I've seen that happen in our country. I don't think people are as educated as they were when I was growing up. And by that, I don't mean, computer science. I don't mean that kind of stuff. I mean like great literature. And I heard, I forget who it was. It was one of the great writers. And he said the difference between literature and regular writing is that literature talks about problems of the heart. And if you can identify with people based, regardless of their status in life, if you can identify with people on the level of problems of the heart, then you're both human, But I don't see that in our society today at all. I see these people in the public sphere, and I don't know. I just think they are empty. I don't even have the words to describe them, but I don't consider them as good people.
I do, and I can frame this really well. I mean, when you see somebody out there that's willing to pick up trash off the sidewalk, just not because somebody asked them, but because they just see it and they know it needs to be done, and they're like, I'm just going to do it. The people that are taking care of the world, not for money, not because somebody's got to pay them, just because it's a thing that needs to be done. That's what adults are supposed to do, without the prompting. And that's, because I think they think that if they're being served, that they're more important than other people, which is the opposite of reality. If you are serving other people, and the Bible talks about that. I mean, it's kind of clear. I mean, all we got to do is follow the plan, follow the rules, and follow the coaching and such. God's world, He tells us how it works. The person that's taking care of things and actually a servant is serving God, is the one that's really in charge. Because when you look at things like in a corporate structure, let's say a corporate structure, the person sitting at the top usually is the least significant in a lot of ways. Okay. That person could not survive unless they had the people underneath them in a corporate structure, not that they're underneath them, but the people that are taking out the trash, doing the janitorial duties and such, the secretaries or the administrative assistants, whatever you want to call them. They change the name all the time just to make people feel better about it. But who cares what the title is? I hate titles. I think it's the dumbest thing that was ever invented was titles. It just, that's another stupid thing. It's like you should go by your name, and a title is just a category for pay grade, or I don't know, for people to try to figure out what's going on. It's ridiculous. And so, when we see all these sorts of things, it's kind of ridiculous, really. I fought against titles for years, and then we had to go for contracts, and everybody's like, Donna, you got to get a title. I'm like, I don't want a title. I'm like, title is just one of those ridiculous things that I don't want any part of. But I ended up saying, okay, give me a title and use, whatever title you want to give me. It matters not to me because I reject all of them. But yeah, sometimes you just, have to go with it a little bit, I suppose.
Well, you got to know where to go to, get something done. And the title tells you who that person is.
Yeah. So, Levon here is talking about landlords. We had a bad landlord in Indiana that was horrible to deal with. In the end, she stole from us. I'm sure that's true because I've seen that happen on both sides. I actually went to buy a property at one point in time, and I drove up to it, and the realtor was also the landlord. How convenient is that? So anyhow, we went up there, and this poor unfortunate soul came, and he comes to the door, and he's looking at me. He goes, "Are we going to get heat?" And I'm like, what? And I looked at the landlord and realtor, and I looked at him like, all right, what's your answer for this one, Scooter? So I said, no, I said, tell me what the problem is, even though I didn't own it, and said, let's see if we can make a change here. And he's like, we haven't had heat for almost 3 weeks. And I'm looking at the landlord like, what say you, and things changed rapidly at that point in time, but people have to be willing to speak up. So this guy clearly could have cared less, absolutely cared less. And coincidentally, his wife was a news anchor here in Grand Rapids, which really was quite shocking. But they're all in it together, and they really don't care.
That's funny. My husband and I were kind of like transients for a while, but we checked into this motel, and there was no hot water. And it wasn't a dive. It was like, I don't know, a Super 8 or something like that. It was one of the normal motels that you would go to stay at if you're traveling around the country by car. But they didn't have any hot water. Their hot water heater broke. And so, we told them about it because we wanted to shower. We'd been driving all day. We waited, didn't hear anything. The next day we went to the office, where's the hot water? No hot water. And so my husband and I decided we're going to camp out in the lobby of that motel, and everybody that walks through the door, we're going to tell them they don't have any hot water here. And so we got hot water within like about 3 hours.
Yeah. It works. And then sometimes, landlord things will happen. Things do happen that are outside of your control, but as long as you jump on and get it fixed, that's one thing. But yeah, I've got lots of stories because there's always two sides to everything. Those that can't say anything by law or without a voice really to show what people are really capable of. I had one house that I could tell stories all day long because I've done this for a very, very, very long time. So, and it's just interesting. But then also, you find really good people that are out there. We had one group of people, they were wonderful, and they would set up ice cream parties for my kids and myself. And it was, we got to know people, and it was was really, really nice. You know, I've got some fond memories of wonderful, wonderful tenants who really care about their neighbors and try to make the world a better place. I mean, that's where it starts. It starts with your family, your neighbors, your friends, and each and every one of us can just do something special and reach out and make the world a little bit better place. And I think one of the biggest things to overcome is just that feeling of isolation that really ramped up during COVID. I mean, the nation was broken by this in so many ways. I was at the the National Republican Leadership. Let's see, the National Republican Lawyers Association meeting in DC. And I got to sit next to a judge that was there, which was really interesting. And I asked him, I said, what are you seeing that's really different in how the world is? And he's like, COVID broke us. He said, we're seeing violent crimes in the age range of 13 to 17 that we've never seen before. He said, it used to be we'd have one a year. He said, one to three a year. He said, we're seeing 3 a month.
Wow. That's pretty shocking. Yeah, COVID, I think that was an attempt by the public health, the government's public health organization to take over control of our society. Before we came on the air, I said, I think our country has been run by a cult, since at least 1945, if not before. And the environment, if you control the environment, you control people, right? By definition. It's like, saying, I'm only going to take care of the barn. But if you take care of the barn, you're in control of the horses too. And that's kind of the situation. And so what I've been looking at is the history of the environmental movement. And they, in my opinion, they are a cult. And they were cultivated by the Rockefellers. It was the Rockefellers who started the United Nations. It was the Rockefellers who funded and started the environmental movement. The Rockefellers were engaged in public health. And I really do believe that they are trying to take over the management of society, of people. And it's a, what would you call it, a scientific capture of people using public health and environment. And one thing that I find most interesting, there's so much going on in Washington, D.C., so much with the military, how the military has been mistreated, and the Army in particular. But nobody has ever mentioned the fact that legislation was passed in the 1960s for general and complete disarmament. Why is nobody talking about that?
Well, I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Oh, let's see. It would help if I put this.
It was in the 1960s, and Kennedy signed it. It's Public Law 87-297. And it's the Arms Control and Disarmament Act. Because under the delusion that we're all going to be peaceful, the UN is going to make the whole world peaceful. Well, that's totally contrary to the nature of people. People are territorial. No matter how much these delusional peace people want to think about it, people are territorial. It's just our nature. And that's what's caused our country to be torn apart. The idea that we could eliminate the border and just, come on in, everybody come in, and we'll just be one big happy human family.
Yeah, how's that working in your small groups around the nation? Like all the parties, as well as even as schools and school boards and churches and political organizations. How's that working for creating peace in these things? Everybody thinks they're right on every level, and they're not willing to listen and try to find a way to make it workable for everyone. That diplomacy part has been missing from our society for a very long time, and it was systematically destroyed. The communication skills have been destroyed, and the ability to be diplomatic to achieve a set goal or something like that with a group of people around you. No, it's just, we're just going to try to tear everybody down instead of working together.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you have these groups that are supporting the illegals. They're flying the Mexican flag.
Yeah, how's that working? That seems to me to be, grounds for some pretty serious charges of sedition or treason if you're doing those sorts of activities under a foreign flag.
Mm-hmm.
Shocking.
Yeah. And something that disturbs me is that Holman came out and, tough guy, he's really going to get into it. But it seems like he's kind of softened a bit. It's like, he wanted to go into Chicago. No, can't do that. Well, Chicago is like one of the centers of illegal immigration. Because
it's easy to get lost in a big city.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And geez, I hope that doesn't happen. But I've been watching this stuff for so long, and the big tough guys come out and they're going to do this, that, and the other. And then it goes away. It's like it's just rhetoric of the day. It's the message of the day. And then we move on and nothing changes.
Well, we've had warthogs off the coast of Mexico, which that's kind of one of those shit's getting real moments when you realize that, yes, we actually have those bad boys up in the air. Mm-hmm. So I think there's things going on behind the scenes a little bit, and they're perhaps cutting down the cartels and the cartel involvement. That's kind of what I'm seeing. And that once you get rid of the criminal networks, which are behind the trafficking of people, because I don't think all of the illegals are necessarily nefarious. I think a lot of them were brought in here as pawns and unfortunately human trafficked hostages, I'll put it that way. So I think that you got to get the bad guys cleaned out. That's the number one priority for me, is clean out the bad guys and disable them from ever having the ability to commit those crimes again, one way or another. They have to be disabled. And quite honestly, the United States, because of Mexico breaking international law and enabling the illegals to come into, or the refugees, they can accept refugees, but they cannot pass them on. And they were just like, come on in, guys. There you go. Open border. And that goes back to what you brought up, is the La Paz Treaty of the international zone of 130 miles on our southern border. Of course they come across. They've already torn it apart by their pretended legislation.
Yeah. And it's not as if any of this is new. I mean, this is the same stuff I was studying in the early 2000s, trying to figure out what the heck's going on, because our border's being invaded.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of stopped for a while. I'm not sure what made it stop, except that we were, militias were forming, and, just regular guys were all headed down to the border to stop the invasion because the government wasn't doing it.
Well, and I think what we're seeing right now is a fundamental structure change to how the United States has done business. And going through the financials is the first step to find out who was involved, and follow the money. You're going to find out exactly who was taking the payments and such. So when they get into Michigan, I think people's jaws are going to drop when they see how deep and how nefarious this whole thing is. So we had I'm going to read a couple of comments from Curtis. In 1965, Small Arms Treaty was signed by the UN. The World Economic Forum is based in Davos, Switzerland, a foreign entity. We have elected officials working for foreign entities here. Absolutely. These people in office are foreign agents working for a foreign entity, implementing a foreign agenda. I would agree with you, Curtis, on that one for sure. They need to be held accountable. When you look at some of our people, even in the Republican Party, and how many are involved in the Caribbean, that should be a eye opener right there. And I mean, everyone should say, the hell? We have, I think it's 9 uncommitted votes for the Republican Party coming from the Virgin Islands. How in the heck do you have votes coming from the Virgin Islands to steer the Republican Party? When did that happen? How did that happen? And with all the nefarious crap that's gone on in the islands, close to the islands, Peters Island, Epstein Island, all of these things, why are not more people asking questions about this and finding out what the answers are? Because this is crazy, you know.
Yeah.
And this weekend, Michonne Maddock came out and said that she would, in fact, be open to contracting John Yob. I think that we need to look into this seriously, because John Yob, I believe, is the gatekeeper for the list for candidates, and that goes down to a couple of other people that need to be questioned. Dave DeShaw. We found some connections and rates that they're getting off of the media, which means that they're all skimming off the top of this as if through other companies. Mm-hmm. I had it on my Telegram channel, and I think I've got it on my X channel too. If you want to see documentation on that, it's all there. So what the investigations going on in Pennsylvania, I think, is going to end up flushing some more of these rats out. And the rats are on both sides. It's not one party. It's a uniparty. It's a mask they use. So we have to look at what is truly evil, what is crimes, and what is not. That's the only way we're going to get through this.
Right.
Now, do you want to talk about this treaty some more? What else can you tell me about this?
Well, it's most interesting because the State Department released a bulletin 7277, and then this group wrote.
Keep talking. I'll be right back. Okay.
Okay. Blueprint for the Peace Race in 1962, and one of the leaders of this movement was Marcus. Marcus Raskin, who happens to be Jamie Raskin's father. And so, and nobody that I've heard of in the public sphere has ever mentioned this legislation. And to my knowledge, it has never been repealed. And it calls for the general and complete disarmament of our country. And it seems like, especially with what's been going on with the Army, that there have been forces cannibalizing the Army since Clinton was in office, if not before. And so all of this kind of takes place in the public arena, but nobody talks about it. Nobody mentions it. They just do things that are a cannibalizing force on the military. You know, and I do know that when Bush came into office, George Herbert Walker, he shut down a unit called Stratcom, which really was the defense of the continental United States. And then they started.
Who shut it down? The Stratcom. Who shut it down?
I think it was Stratcom.
Okay.
It was the Strategic Command out of Colorado.
Who shut it down, though? You said somebody shut it down?
George Herbert Walker Bush.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And they were the guys that on just a couple minutes notice, they would, get in their airplanes and be in the air protecting the United States. But when Bush came into office, they changed the paradigm of the military, and it was part of the disarmament. They went to the idea of special forces. We don't need big army anymore. We're not going to have big army fights. We're going to have these special forces skirmishes. Well, it seems, I don't know, the United States was the only country delusional enough to believe that. And
I liked what you said about Jamie Raskin and his dad.
Yes.
This was like shocking. I had never heard that. And I'm pretty sure most people haven't either. Tell me about his dad. What's his dad's name?
Marcus Raskin. He died just recently, but he was in government during he was an advisor to the president, I think. It may have been Kennedy. And then he left government and started this policy institute, the Institute for Policy Studies or something like that. And it's still out there. Let me see if I can find it for you real quick. I traced their history, and they were involved with, setting up the whole communist system in San Francisco, and bringing Mikhail Gorbachev over, who was at the Presidio for a long time, a number of years. And so they have been working on this un-American activities to shut down and bring chaos to our country since the 1960s. But they have done it very subtly. It's open. You can go research it. But let me hang on a second when I do.
I'm going to pull up Jamie Raskin, then we'll go to Marcus Raskin. There we go. Traitor on the premises. Traitor on the premises.
Yeah, Jamie Raskin, that guy is a monster. The more you look at him.
Yeah, traitor on the premises.
One thing I don't understand, when I was looking at Raskin, he was holding, when the Democrats were in power, he was holding these hearings on domestic terrorists. Anybody that was not a Democrat that protested anything, they considered to be a domestic terrorist. And so he held about 7 hearings. And for some bizarre reason, when power switched hands, the committee took down some of Raskin's hearings. It's like, what are you guys doing? Are you trying to protect Jamie Raskin? Because they were, he was really going after right-wing people for expressing their political views.
Here you go, Arms Control and Disarmament Agency. 61 to 99. That existed between 61 and 99. So, they got to disarm us, because then we can't then we can't fight back from when they decide to pull some crap, right?
Yeah.
I hope everybody understands that why we need that Second Amendment and why we have to be able to defend ourselves is all you got to do is look at Australia and some of the other countries. As soon as they're disarmed, guess what happens, people? It is all over. That's when the killing
I was so
starts.
shocked. I was so shocked that the Australians allowed themselves to be disarmed. But you know what? That happened after a terrorist event,
Of course.
where a gunman, I don't know, I can't remember the exact story, but he killed several people on his rampage. And then,
Well, and you got to wonder, just like everything else, is if the government itself staged it in order to have, oh, you need to be safe. Let's just give up your firearms and give up your freedoms and such, and we'll keep you safe. We promise. Run, Somebody says they run like hell.
As soon as you give up your gun, you're just a sitting duck.
Yep.
So I hope the American people, I can't even in my wildest dreams think that the American people will ever give up their guns.
I think that we're helping to educate them if they do. It's like maybe the snowflake in the soy boy class will kind of come to their senses and decide, you know what? Maybe this is a bad idea to disarm. Maybe we shouldn't be listening to the people who have stolen and robbed us blind and taken our tax dollars and all that. I'm hoping that we're getting smarter.
And that are trying to break our nation state. They're trying to break the Westphalian system of nation states is what they're doing. And trying to implement regional governance under the United Nations. And I think it was either Stephen or Nelson Rockefeller that got the recognition for regional organizations in the UN Charter. And that was his specific thing, was to get. So if you look at regions of the world, go to the State Department, look at regions of the world. The U.S. Trade Representative, because that's the organization that these, I hate using the word fascists, but they are fascist communists. That's the organization of the world that they want. They want regional management. Well, our constitutional rights don't apply to a regional organization that is sitting over the top of our country. As a matter of fact, most people don't even know that it's there. They don't know the Organization of the United Nations, and that the regional organizations are very much at the core of the United Nations and how they are attacking our country.
Office of Foreign Missions.
Yeah, why would we have foreign missions in the continental United States?
That absolutely makes you wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Look at DC. They've got Virginia and Maryland in DC. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I've never seen that map, but it's really interesting because
here, I'll put it in the private chat because there's that, but then I also found a bunch of other things in here. Let me throw this in the private chat for you to grab off of a minute. And then what I'll do is I'll go back here to my little look at all this. This is kind of crazy. Yeah, you can look at all these maps and such, but here you go. Northcom, Southcom, Africom, CENTCOM, Yukon, and PACOM. So, and then they've got it interior regional boundaries.
Now let me
Look at this. You know what they did. You know what? The first thing I see when I see these maps is, especially this guy right here, is they made sure that there was one central large city in each one of these regions that things can be managed by.
Yes, that's the idea, is a metropolitan
Yeah.
region.
It's a metropolitan zone. It's like, I mean, that struck me right off the bat, that what they did is they put this together under a large metropolitan zone, so that they'll commandeer all the rural areas to feed the beast, their prison system, because it's a prison system. That's what it is.
Well, and that's what they did in Boise, Idaho, with Meridian, with a town called Star, Idaho, being in the outer boundary of the uh, metropolitan region that they put together. They formed an organization of 5 mayors. Well, when your mayor joins an organization with 4 other mayors, his power is diluted by that sharing of power at the metropolitan level, right? That's what they've done all over our country, is to implement districts and regions. And they still leave the election system in as if it has anything to do with anything. But the power of government has been usurped into these regional structures.
Yeah, this is a crazy thing to see, but the collectivism, we're trying to group things together, is it's taking the power away. They do it in the political parties, they do it in all of these structures, to take the vote away from the many and put it in the hands of the few. That seems to be repeated over and over again. So who's going to sit on these boards for these regions? There's my question. This is based on watersheds, so they say.
Well,
But
it's
I'm not really kind of buying that, honestly.
Yeah, it's modeled on the Japanese karetsu. A karetsu is an organization of businesses. They have a different system of business than we do.
And this whole thing is a lie, guys. That's a lie. That's not on watersheds. That's based on something else. Look at it for a minute. You get it figured out real quick.
Yeah. Yep.
Go ahead. I'm sorry about. Please continue on to Japan.
Oh, that's okay. I was trying to find. I have the old USTR website where they're showing the different regions. Africa, Europe, the Americas, and that's the way the USTR looks at the world. They're looking at regional organizations, and they were writing what are so-called trade agreements that are not really trade agreements. They're harmonization of laws agreements. That's what NAFTA was. Harmonization of laws. So that they could just kind of slowly and stealthily convert to regional governance without us knowing about it.
Well, look at the redistricting that's gone on. Even the state of Michigan, we've had so much redistricting going on, and it was to skew the vote in areas. I mean, this is all nefarious. Why don't they even do this? I mean, this doesn't make any sense. Should be
well, because they're executing a slow rolling coup d'etat on our country.
Well said.
Let me show you the Minnesota map. I think you're in the Great Lakes region.
Yes. Oh, Michigan. Ta-da. We are here. The mitten. We're in the mitten state.
Where are you?
That's really interesting. I think I might just post that map for everybody to see and say, yeah, this is kind of like.
Lost the window. Hang on, getting windows open that I shouldn't have open.
No worries. Hey, this is exactly what we should be doing, is researching online. And ta-da, just research online.
Yeah, I used to do research with other people. We'd share information. And okay, here's the Minnesota region. And it's funny. I just happened to catch the governor's debate in Minnesota, the Minnesota governor's debate in 2006. And they were talking about something that I thought was very odd, a special zone and a foreign cement company that moved into the zone right next to an American cement company that was outside the zone. And the foreign cement company was getting all kinds of tax breaks. They could operate, for free.
Wouldn't happen to be Comex, would it?
It was Cemex.
Cemex, not Comex, Cemex. Yeah, Cemex has been in the news a lot because you've got a foreign. I misquoted, but I was close. You've got a foreign country, foreign entity, and their cement failed. There were lots of projects that were bid on or put together in the United States where they were the contractor, and their projects, several of them were failing, like bridges and such. So kind of questioning that. It's just like the steel industry. We were buying steel overseas. The steel that they contracted through Obama was substandard steel, which is really bad because you're going to put our American military men and women, their lives at risk by having substandard materials. And I'm hoping that all of them are fairly pissed off about this, and that they know about it, and that they're pissed off about it. So Minnesota. So Doug Burgum in Minnesota, I'm not a fan at all. I'll tell you why. Several reasons why, and I don't know why his face popped up, other than the fact that perhaps he's controlled. But he was enabling the sale of our land right next to the military bases up there to China. And not only that, he was working with, let's see, there's a bunch of people he's working with in the tech sector to write and enable the app to track those people in violation of red flag laws. So he supported that, red flag laws. So it's a big nope to him. Big nope. I'm hoping that he's controlled. I believe that he is controlled. That's the only reason why his face is here and not Gitmo. But he was behind this.
Well, it's actually war on the American people, war Absolutely. On American business. And when they signed when they passed legislation for NAFTA and to create the WTO, they were waging war on our economy. But our politicians are just nothing but paid off whores.
They are. And all of them. This is so important for people to understand. If anybody was sitting in the seat, it's because they were vetted and they were either weak or they were easy to control. You could never have a Brandenburg sitting in there because shit would have gotten real, right? Because it would have been, okay, just hold on a minute. There's a problem with this, and I think we need to not only discuss it, but anyone that's signing on to this needs to be charged for a crime.
Well, and that's the thing about our political system. And Trump is pretty good and bringing in, people are just, raising hell about, what's his name, Elon Musk. But nobody is just saying that Elon Musk is a consultant And he was hired by whatever agency he's working for. He's a consultant, and our whole damn government is run by consultants, because IT projects were always outsourced to contractors, and except that it was all kept within the boundaries of an agency, and so you didn't see it. But since they are coming out, with globalization, and they've done so many national systems, under the guise of the National Information Infrastructure Project, that he's still operating as a consultant. It's just that it's visible now, what they have been doing for decades. That's what I did for a living. I was a contractor. And so I know how that business works. But it's kind of disappointing to me that they're starting with the Treasury, the really bad department, for graft and corruption, is Health and Human Services.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can't wait till they get to that and people's minds are blown on USAID. Just wait till they roll through that department. And then when we get to Michigan, I think it's going to be real shocking too, because Michigan, the corruption in Michigan is just unbelievable. Mm-hmm. The money laundering and the connection with World Economic Forum and the insurance industry. So, you look at that and you go right to the top with Whitmer. This weekend, I actually I did some digging around and I connected some things that Dana Nestle's involved in, and it leads to an address that's occupied by the London Stock Exchange in New York City. So just wait till that little bit of information comes out. You think these people are who they say they are? Heck no. They're all part of this global crime syndicate.
Right.
And it's all about the money.
And what do people think a market is? Translate that into computer language. It's a computer system with centralization of control. That's what it is. That's what Enron was doing, when they were brought down. They were trying to build a national system of all commodities. They intended to be the Jeff Skilling, who was a McKinsey consultant when he was hired by Ken Lay. His objective was to build a, quote, market for all commodities. It's just amazing, the more you understand about what's been done, the easier it is to see how corrupt all of it is. They began deregulation of everything in the 1980s. That's when Reagan was in office. That's when they had the lawsuit for deregulation of the telephone. They had deregulation of the utilities. Then they moved to the stock market, deregulation of commodities trading, deregulation of stock trading, deregulation of insurance, just taking everything apart, eliminating the regulatory structure on corporations. And while that was happening, they were building up the regulatory structure on ordinary people. Okay, so that basically puts you in the position of being essentially a slave managed by the government, while the corporations are free to wreak havoc to our country, to the world, to our lives and our families.
Yeah, it's really is kind of a crazy thing. Tomorrow we're going to have Warren Carpenter on. He had to duck out because he had some sort of a family issue, a family medical issue. So he'll be back on tomorrow. And we're going to be talking about how these consultants are running the political parties. And there's a report that's going to come out that's out. And I think it's going to be fairly shocking to everyone to see what's actually been going on. I'm going to play a clip here that I put out there, and I got called stunningly stupid over putting this out here, but that's okay. I take it as a badge of honor. Depends on who it comes from. So at any rate, we're going to look at this, and Scott Greenlee decided to back down to support Michonne Maddock because they're all doing this all together, right? They're all in bed together, guys. And then he said that he was headed to Washington, D.C. Now, why would we be going to Washington, D.C.? So I'm going to skip past this. Listen to this a minute. Because we're denying that we said it, but we said it here. She said it. So I'm just going to put it out there. And then tomorrow we're going to talk about and I'm not a fan of anybody out there. I mean, we got these two factions in Michigan, and they're all a bunch of morons, quite honestly. There's the we support Christina Caramo faction, and we support Pete Hoekstra faction. Is like they're the only two freaking Republicans in the state, and they both were wrong. And I'm sitting here going, are we this dense that we can't get off these go team go moments instead of, all right, we got a problem, and acknowledge that there are problems and find somebody better. But no, we won't do this. But listen to this.
Are elected to be the next chairman of the Michigan GOP, will you contract or will you allow to be contracted with John Yobb's political consulting firm, Strategic National, or any other entity of his to be the political consultant for this election cycle for the Michigan GOP? Yes or no?
Yes.
Bam. Right there. She said it. Yes. So everybody out there, don't tell me she didn't say it, because she freaking said it. And it was right out there. And then I'm going to go to something else here that I think is fairly significant. We'll bring it out tomorrow, because this is, okay, she calls me stunningly stupid, which I think is funny as hell. Really, I think this is really funny. If you really want to know the truth. It's kind of a badge of honor. Depends on who calls you the name. So now I'm really stupid, which is really funny. And then just totally deflects the issue here. It was the effect that said that she would be open to hiring John Yobb. Okay. So we're going to go through this. And then we kind of got into a pissing match, and she didn't even quote the channel, my channel on Twitter. She even put the wrong channel out there. But I want to show you this. So then this pops up. Rural AM/FM seller agreement. And not only that, let's just go to Laura and find out that Strategic National has a guy who's been fairly, I don't know, visible in the Republican Party, is the resident agent, Dave DeShaw. And then over here, he's also part of Rural AM/FM, which goes back to the stinking contract 2 pages back. So the guy is the registered agent of this, and he's also working for John Yobb's Strategic National. And I'm like, come on, guys, we're better than this. Are you kidding me? I just can't believe that people are still getting on these rah-rah political sports team thing and going back and forth. We are better than this. I would hope
people, the American people are totally conditioned for competition. I for a while I lived across the street from a junior high school, and I was appalled when they started a football team for 12-year-olds.
Right?
Yeah, because their bones are not even formed solid yet. You know, they're still growing, and for them to be involved in football at that age, I thought was just appalling.
Yeah, what are you doing? What are you doing to these kids?
Yeah, but it's all to teach people, to condition people. Rah competition. Well, run for your life, sucker, because you're just in one of those guinea pig wheels running round and round and round, because globalization will never let you succeed. Never.
Right. And then you have people that come up that are part of the go-go sports team. Ryan Kelly came out with something today that I saw that was his list of priorities. I'm going to tell you, I spoke with a guy at a couple places. I'm going to tell you, you better ask some real questions. He's like, we're going to start thorium reactors. We're going to start this. And I'm like, yeah, that's a quaint idea. I'm glad you Googled that, because that isn't even possible right now. And so, you know, they just talk out their behinds. And in his list is like, we're going to stop regulation. We're going to stop this. We're going to do this. It's like, really? really? Have you, how you going to do this? And so they say, they look at what's on the news and then come up with the new latest and greatest ideas with that are the buzzwords. I bet that's what they do is they go in and they Google what are the buzzwords, what's in the news right now, and that's what we're going to talk to without having any knowledge to the background of this whatsoever. But boy, they can put those buzzwords out there, and then the flirt factor starts, and that it's all over at that point in time. The teams are set up against each other. We're never going to work together. And the Republican, Democrat, all the parties that have taken money, dark money, and that the dark money funds, the foreign money, the PAC money and such, they are absolutely a domestic threat at this point in time.
Yeah. What's his name? Not Grover Norquist, but the other guy that was with Reagan when he came into power. He basically said that we're an empire now, and when we act, as you can try and figure it out as judiciously as you will, but by the time you do this, this is not a quote. I'm just generalizing what he said. By the time you figure it out, we'll be on to the next thing. Our whole public sphere is nothing but a puppet show.
It is the whole thing.
That's why Hollywood is so involved. And, I don't even know how much is real on the internet in terms of the videos that people watch. I was watching the campaign one year for the Republican Party. Now, our economy had melted down. I mean, it was a disaster. There was an article in the San Francisco Chronicle about 8,000 people applying for 400 Walmart jobs. Arizona, 4,000 people applying for 400 jobs in a Walmart. It was, new Walmarts. They were building Walmarts everywhere. It's like a jobs program. But this stupid Republican campaign commercial was done in Las Vegas, and it was as if the whole damn country is just so rich, we're doing so well, and it was all a campaign that was put together by one of these political consultants, and I couldn't believe what I was watching. It's like, don't these guys read the newspaper? Don't they? But that was early on in the internet when people were used to just looking at their own media market for information. They were apparently not aware of the opportunities of media to become national and international. So for a time, there was this disparity between, what the politicians were saying and doing and what you're seeing on the internet. As a matter of fact, it was that discordance that started me researching, If what I believe about the country is not real, not true, then what is real? What is true?
Right. Well, when we look at, I want to look at FTX, and I'm going to go back to my thing that the parties are a domestic threat, but they're also a foreign threat because they're being funded by foreign sources. And not only are we giving the money, tax dollars out, it's going back into the system in a number of ways. You look at the FTX collapse and what happened there with Friedman and such, the whole thing. The whole thing, 30-year-old Sam Bankman-Fried, was basically had ties to a hedge fund called Alameda Research. And he basically, it's all tied in. Their girlfriends and everybody else is tied into this. But the point being is that the political parties, it wasn't just the Democrats that were being funded by this. It was also the Republicans. It's
yeah, they're funding both sides.
they are literally funding both sides of it. It has nothing to do. So it's election interference. It's election rigging. It's all kinds of buying our elections. And the only people that are cut out of the chain of the corruption and the money laundering and such are the American people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only, it is sickening. It's horrific and it's sickening. And every one of these people along the chain are guilty. And I really think that as we watch what's happening with what President Trump and the good guys are doing, which we can also say, God, thank you, is the fact that one by one, they're bringing this house of cards down. It's all coming down. And at some point in time, there's going to be a strategic, instead of like picking off the top and coming down, it's going to all fall. I'm completely convinced of this. I'm waiting for that day. It's going to be amazing.
Well, the problem is that we do need a government. I know people don't like to hear that, but we do need a government. We need police. We need fire. There are things that in order to have a civilized society, you have to have.
You have to, because people do not have the honesty. As soon as they kick God out, or anyone kicks God out of their life or their heart, things are going to go badly, very, very badly. Because if there's no standard, if there's no standard, or there's no leadership from God, which is ultimate good, it will devolve into evil activities. I mean, in a personal situation, when you look at people, once somebody starts down a bad path, it's very hard to rehabilitate. You're better off just try to stay above board, because coming back from doing something wrong is always painful, no matter what it is.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But, when you look at the world, there are a lot of bad people out there. And people like us who follow the rules, who live, normal lives, we are kind of, if there was no government, we would be at the mercy of those criminals. And a lot of people, especially in the big cities, are at the mercy of criminals that are allowed to operate by their corrupt city governments. And so people need to refine their moral foundations. I totally agree with you on that. And we need to rekindle the spirit of morality, which says that there are right things to do and wrong things to do. And people seem to have forgotten that. It's like they've turned our entire society almost, the majority of the society, into sociopaths and psychopaths. Take what you can get, grab the money and run, as if money is the most important thing in the world. And
it's like the message is that you've been hurt. Someone has trespassed upon you or done something horrible to you. So you just go out there and make it right and make the world right and grab what you can. That's kind of like the antithesis of what should be happening here. If something bad happens to you, we've all had bad stuff happen to you, or happen to us. All of us have. There's nobody that's been left out of having something that really hurt, or especially if somebody you trusted, that really hurts. The reaction to a person who doesn't have God is, I'm going to get them back, or I'm going to do something to make this right all on my own. Well, that's kind of like the opposite of what you should be doing, really. You just learn from it, teach other people, and say, this happened to me. And you know what? This is I'm not going to be a victim. I'm not going to feel sorry for myself, and I'm not going to hurt other people as if that's going to make it right. When something bad happens, you don't make it right by returning like. You don't make it right. You learn from it and you move on and suck it up, Buttercup, because it happens to everyone. No one is any more of a victim than anyone else at this stage of the game. And that's the truth. When we find out that all of this evil stuff is going to come up, maybe children, let's put it, kids are You know what I mean? We should be protecting children. But the point being is that you can see things that are bad in the world, and you can feel sorry for yourself and justify a bad reaction. Well, they're doing it, so I'm going to do it because they got away with it. That is not okay. That's not okay.
Yep.
You don't justify bad behavior ever, ever, ever. You see somebody doing bad behavior, call it out for what it is and say, yeah, I'm not going to do what that guy did over there because this is wrong, and set the standard. That's what we're supposed to be doing. If you don't see it, it's up to you to set the standard and do what's right, regardless what you see around you. Now, is anybody going to get this perfect? No, we're human beings. We're fallen. That's the point. We are fallen. But every day, God believes in us, and he says he watches us do things wrong and says, all right, I believe in you. You're my child. I'm going to pick you up, put you on your feet, make sure you're kind of stabilized, and hopefully you'll get it right tomorrow. And come on, you can do it. You can do it. Do the right thing. Don't fail. I believe in you. And he does it every day after day after day. Don't you ever look at yourself sometimes and say, yeah, he should have probably zapped me years ago. But he doesn't. He has mercy and grace. And the grace is to pick us up and say, I believe in you. I love you. I believe in you. There's still good in you somewhere, even if you're the worst person on the planet. And you know what? You ask him to help you. He'll give you his Holy Spirit, and you learn and you change and you become better every day to become more like him. And he's good all the time. As a person, we're supposed to be learning from him, which is kind of amazing. And if you want to know how to do that, get in the instruction manual. The instruction manual is the Bible. Go to the instruction manual, start reading it, and find out what it says. Not all of these wonderful people that want to tell you what it says. Go read it. Read the source. Go to the source documents. And then read them. Find out what it says. And not listening to people, because people twist the words all the time. I listen to it. They'll take verses out of context. See, this is what it means. No, read the chapter before and after and see in context what it really says. And then you'll have the ability to say, oh, this is what it's meaning. It's like, a statistician can take numbers and make it say anything, right?
Yeah.
Twist them around.
The one thing that our schools should teach is for people not to be sheep.
Correct.
In our country, it seems like that people are taught to be sheep and to write and to do brain sharing. You do the work reading and, figuring this out, and then let me know. Well, that's really stupid, because you don't know if they're going to be telling you the truth. Everybody needs to do their own thinking, their own research, and, use their own brains if they have any.
When you ask another person for information, or you go to them, because people always like, well, who do you follow? I'm like, yeah, I follow God. That's about it. The rest, everybody else gives me input for ideas and information and such. But I don't really have people that I take at face value. In fact, I have no one I take at face value at any point in time, because they always bring their human bias based on their experiences into the equation. They may not even know they're wrong. They may be trying to do the right thing, but maybe somebody got to them and fed them bad information. So you listen to them for information, not as somebody to go, oh, yes, I followed them. Come on, Marge. Come on, Agnes. Let's go follow this person because they're going to tell us the truth. I'm like, no, you listen to them for information and then question it. Does this make sense? Well, no, or yeah, it kind of makes sense. Tell me more. Look into it more. Let's find out what's really going on here, and ask more questions of more people, or going and finding our own source documents, which leads to more questions, which starts to clear the fog that's out there of manipulation, because there's a lot of fog out there right now. And a lot of bias. People, a lot of people don't want the truth. They just want to hear things that uphold their opinion on what they want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be reinforced. They don't want their opinions challenged. They want to have their opinions reinforced. Tell me I'm right. The person to listen to says, tell me I'm wrong and why. Because I want to know. Because if you're just telling me what you think I want to hear, I don't want to talk to you. You're just a manipulator. Tell me why I'm wrong. And then let's go through this together. Or tell me why something that I'm following is wrong. But it better be good information, because I'll question the information no matter where it comes from. But not this, I follow Ryan Keller, or I follow Soldano, or I follow this person or that person. You can follow them and look at what they do, not what they say, but what have they done?
Yeah, because so often, especially with politicians, they'll say anything.
Oh, yeah.
But what they do is entirely different.
And who's paying them to say it?
Well,
people are not doing it by themselves. Look at who's paying them. Look whose payroll they're on. Yeah. So you start there. Is look at who's paid. What is their incentive? Are they just paid to say what they're saying, or to be in office in a certain position because they're part of the Republican Party or the Democrat Party or whatever party it is? You know, you look at John Yob, for example, who Mashawn Maddox just said that she's open to, will you contract? Yes. Clear as bell. Okay. So with that said, what happened? I believe the Republican Party gave Craig's campaign $20 million. I believe that to be true. Okay. If you want to question it, be optimistic. Show me where I'm wrong. Okay. And then Yob got his cut of that. And then all of a sudden, yoink, they yoinked the support away from Craig. And then all of a sudden, bring in DeVos. And the DeVos candidate was Tudor Dixon, who is part of a global information sharing network started by her father. That's what they did. They sold information, right? And then all of a sudden she wins the primary. Yoink, they pull her funding. This isn't too hard to follow, guys, to question this. And oh no, what happened? Why did they, turn their back on poor Tudor? Because it was planned all along. And at that very time, why was it the DeVos had a secret meeting with the other oligarchs that buy the politics in Michigan and started Republicans for Whitmer?
Well, and you have to ask.
We're better than this, people. We're better than this, please.
At this point, you have to ask why. Well, I always would have asked, but why do politicians need millions and millions and millions of dollars to run for office?
Because they suck.
They can set up a website where they can talk to their constituents, do campaign videos for $500. So.
But you got to overcome the machine, because they're funding, as we see by USAID, where they're funding our entire news media. So they're trapped in the game of having to play the game, or there's no chance, because the whole system's rigged top to bottom, and it's rigged out inside the parties. It's not outside. Everybody thinks they've got protection inside the party. It's domestic threat right there and foreign.
Well, you could do one mailing that gives the web address of your campaign website, and hand out cards everywhere you go. Here's my website. Here's my website.
I've got another idea. Okay, so we need to vet people for what they know, not just what they say, but what they know. We need to have a vetting process, just like a hiring process, and treat it like a hiring process, right? Cut all of the election industry out of the process of where everybody's making money along the way. Have one site that they may post to a government website, and the top amount of cap what they can spend on it. The rest of it is just individual. And if there's any money that flows to these other organizations that are political organizations that are being backed by, say DeVos's and such, who have jumped into the fray. Why would somebody, ask yourself this, DeVos has contributed $59 million. Tell me why an entity or an organization would put $59 million into politics.
Well, and that's something that I think is the one thing that needs to be done. If you can't vote, you can't contribute. We need a law like that. Can a corporation vote? No, they can't. All they can do is buy politicians.
And put it into PACs or dark money. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, same thing with NGOs. Same deal. They can't vote, so why are they contributing? They're buying favors, what they're doing, and the favor, it has nothing to do with the voters or the citizens. It has to do with their own interests, whatever those interests are.
I agree.
So it is so corrupt that we allow corporations to give millions and millions of dollars to politicians when they can't vote. They're voting with money, which is bribery, for crying out loud. This is not rocket science. So
you said it. I'm just agreeing with you here, but absolutely, the whole system is just absolutely a putrid mess of corruption.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody that stands up against it is either silenced, either they do an arkanciding, or they do basically a character assassination, or they silence you, which is why free speech is so important. You have to have free speech. You have to have people that are speaking that disagree with you, because we don't want someone's answer. We want the best answer, no matter where it's coming from. If somebody who is a Democrat came up to me and said, I think we need to do this, and I've got a solution to a problem, be like, tell me what your solution is. Let's see what the solution is, and let's give it, and they analyze it based on merit, not because you got a D or an R in front of your name. Mm-hmm. The politicians only stand together with the people who have the matching logo on the shirt, on their team, right? They got a team logo on, either an R or a D.
Go Repubs, go Dems. I mean, that's the whole competition mindset. And when people, it seems like something weird happens with people when they're competing, when it's an important competition. It's like they kind of lose their minds.
And why are they competing?
Yeah. I mean, have you seen the soccer games in these third world countries? Well, not even third world. I shouldn't say that, because over in Europe, these soccer games, people go absolutely crazy. They riot.
Yeah.
I mean, how is it that a game gets so important that you're willing to riot and tear things apart if your team loses? I mean, it's crazy.
It is. Did you see that now? Honestly, now what's happening is they're actually putting in, this is actually kind of funny. They're actually saying in like the Super Bowl yesterday that this was for entertainment. That to me puts us in the same category as the World Wrestling Federation or whatever it is, where they're like, give them the chair, give them the chair. It's like this has nothing to do with with an actual competition. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
I don't believe any of it. I think the whole thing is rigged.
Right. Well, I do too. I don't think it was always that way. Pro wrestling was always that way. Pro wrestling was always rigged.
Always.
But and I think boxing to an extent. When I was a kid, my dad used to like to watch the Friday night fights, and I'm not sure that those weren't rigged as well. But it's become outrageous. What has happened to sports, and it's all conditioning for people. It's how they get out their aggression. It's how they become able to be manipulated, because all somebody has to do is say competition, and people are all packed up ready to go and compete. Yeah. I don't get it. I just have never been into sports. I used to like to watch the ice skating for the Olympics until that got all messed up in the 1970s. Remember when Carter said we're not going to participate in the Olympics? well, that was it for me. I never did go back to watching the Olympics because I don't know. I just competing like that doesn't make any sense to me.
Kind of looks like child abuse to me if you really want to know the truth. You see these gymnasts that are really, really small, and how many hours that they're putting so many years of their lives on the hopes of the glory moment of that one moment. I remember my kids were like, we want to be in gymnastics. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. That, it's like, no, that is not. If you look at making a good decision on something, and I let them go in gymnastics for a while just for fun. It was an extracurricular type thing. But then they really didn't want to compete. Okay. So that wasn't the issue. But I'm like, first of all, we're going to learn right now what a smart decision is made. If you bank on you got all of the gymnasts that want to be that, that gymnast that gets a gold medal, right? How many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of athletes want that gold medal and dream of that their entire life? The probability is worse than winning the lotto.
Yeah.
And so they pour their entire lives into this. And you see like the moms and dads, it becomes their glory moment because they've got the star child out there that they're the whole family is basically sacrificing for that one more glory moment that is not likely to happen. Boy, talk about being a betting person, and you're betting with your child's life to fit into this structure. That's basically, I don't know. I saw it in the horse shows too. That's why I stopped going to horse shows. I'll go and, I'll go once in a while just to look at horses, but not a chance. And because you want to know why? When you start seeing how rigged it is, the whole thing is rigged. Yeah. The medals and stuff goes to whoever plays the game and who makes a really good, talking point for the associations. So like what I'd see is that the president of the association was going to win the highest ribbons and such. And clearly, if you know horses, his horse didn't win it. So you sit there going, everybody in the arena is going like, well, that horse actually won. But who got the ribbons? The president of the organization or his kid or something like that. And you're like, yeah, I can see what this game is all about. And I can't imagine parents putting their children through that 6-8 hours a day, every day. And the amount of burnout and the punishment on their bodies, let alone what they give these kids to keep them small, restrict food and all that sort of thing. This is freaking child abuse.
Yeah, I think, when that little Russian girl and her, I forget what her name was, but she was like best in the world gymnast. But when they started writing articles about what she went through with her coach, it was child abuse, to get her to that point to where she would win that competition. And
look at the dude over at Michigan State here that was, like not appropriate with these young girls, and he got in trouble with it. But I'm sitting here going, where were the parents?
Yeah.
I'm like, are you? I'm not saying that there's a victim, that there's no victims out there. That's not what I'm saying. But you would think that over the number of years that he's like, touching young girls inappropriately, that nobody knew this was going on.
Yeah, kind of hard to believe, huh?
I don't believe it. And I'm sorry. I just don't believe it. Statistically, it's impossible. And I had let's see, somebody's throwing some comments out there. Let's see. He had to lose some. I'm reading the comments here. Somebody said, I think straight ticket needs to come off the ballots. That's CNS 1000. Yeah, I would agree that too. Go sports team. Go sport. And then we find out that the elections in Michigan, that if you voted straight ticket the last time, your vote didn't count. That's how they had the machines rigged. That came out too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then Curtis is saying MIGOP used rigged machines this year to select their winner. Of course they did. They're all involved in this. So
the minute they started using machines, it was all over for honest elections. What I think should happen is that state elections should be separated from national elections, and there should be a paper ballot for national elections, and they should be counted before they leave the precinct.
I agree.
And so you
And
couldn't
abolishing the absentee ballots at this point in time, unless you're military. I'm sorry, we need to take this seriously instead of going, I think I'll make this out like Publishers Clearinghouse giveaway. I'm going to sit home, come on, Marge, come on, Agnes, let's make out our paper ballots here like Publishers Clearinghouse, because we don't want to go down to the precinct to have our votes count down there. And I get it. There's difficulties in all things. But why not make it a national holiday where everybody's got off work? Enable people to get down there. There are ways to do this, to make this work. Or we could do something like if you want to do an absentee ballot, it's got to be in person. You've got to be able to have voter verification. And so that not only voter verification, but you got to be able to follow your ballot all the way through the process. And there's ways of doing that. So that we can have it, treat it like currency. Somebody goes in and starts deciding to Xerox, which I heard the term, off these ballots as they so see fit, that should be treated like counterfeiting.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Yeah. That's the thing. There are ways to fix it, but gee, nobody at the national or state level can think of any. They don't
want to think of anybody because it breaks their game. It busts them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't even say that it's because of the cost of the election, because here in Idaho there are different elections anyway. Anything for the schools is done in a separate election.
And how much money have we actually put into investigating these elections? Come on. You're either going to get it at the front end or you're going to get it on the back end. So even if they have to spend a little more, which I think it would be less if we stop funding, say, I don't know, the election machines to $25 million and such in Michigan. And then how much time have we spent and effort investigating, and nothing comes around because they don't want it to change.
Yeah.
Defund it.
And what could they do? They could put a box at the precinct, and if you want to donate $1, for the election, you could, So it can't be a matter of money, because it's the most important thing we do. It's the election of our representatives, ostensibly our representatives.
Well, I tell you, when I sued in Supreme Court, and they wouldn't make a decision in Michigan because they're all a bunch of gutless worms here in the court system. And then I sued in federal court, and they said that I was removed illegally, but would not give me any restitution for it and would not put me on the ballot because absentee ballots. So we can go ahead and commit the crime and deprive somebody of their rights and then say, well, we can't do this because it's too late for absentee ballots have to go out. Maybe we should fix it. Perhaps that's what we need to do is not just like ramrod through this whole thing. Maybe we should just take a pause and say, we have a problem. Maybe we should fix this before we go on and commit another crime. But no, that's not the MO. So. Yeah. Well, how we call it good? Wow, this is almost 2 hours. This is like one of my favorite shows, just sitting here talking with you. I love this.
I could go on and on and on. It's just, I just can't believe what's happened to this country. And it really does. It makes me very sad, when I think that it seems like that people have lost their moral center.
At all cost.
Mm-hmm.
That's the mindset.
And integrity is a word that I think they must have erased it from the dictionary or something, because there doesn't seem to be integrity. And if you don't have that, you have nothing. And so our country is just like one big boxing match with criminal syndicates on either side, and the people that are being played are the audience that's watching the whole damn thing.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, we're getting smarter every day, so that's good. I can't believe
how much on it anyway. Yeah.
I can't believe how much I've learned even in the last 5 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was done with the system a long time ago. I stopped basically, I home birthed my kids. I was foraging for food. I was just kind of done with all of this. Right. And, just kind of done with the system because I saw it was so broken. And I think most people really feel that way, that they see the system that's broken. They know that there's something wrong, but they can't quite put their finger on what it is, because to acknowledge what's really wrong is to say the whole thing is wrong. It's not just one part. It's integrated parts that are locked together, work together to protect the system.
Yes.
So we have to get out of this entire mindset of having all of these things that we believe to be true and go to truth. And all of our preconceived notions, we've got to be okay with letting them go and saying, well, I believe in this party, or I believe in this system, or I believe in this organization, and say, maybe they're part of it. And maybe we need to just walk away from it and say, I'm not going to be a part of this because it's wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be a useful idiot sitting on the bottom, letting them program me to be part of their weapon. That's what needs to happen.
Well, I think, like I said,
individual thinking.
Like I said at the beginning, I think our country was captured by a cult very early, around World War II, maybe even around the time of the League of Nations. But it's been out in the open, but carefully not ever discussed. So you kind of have to find it on your own. And we were never triggered to do that until around the year 2000. And so people need to be aware that our country, in my opinion, is being run by a cult. And we need to break that spell.
And it's set against God, it's set against people, and it's set against God. And it exists for the growth and, and the perpetuation of their crimes and the things that they want to do. I mean, it's all about money, power, and influence. And it's unfortunate because it leaves everybody that's not sitting at the table behind because they don't care about them. They don't care about we the people. Well, with that said, my friend, let's say a prayer and then move on to our day. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for Vicky and all the wonderful people out there that are willing to share their knowledge, their information, and their time to try to figure this thing out, to follow you, and to right this incredibly evil system that has been so pervasive into every part of our lives. I'm so thankful for what President Trump and all the good guys are doing to break this thing down, to get rid of the money laundering, to expose it, and hopefully to bring things back to plumb, which is one nation under you, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We pray for every single person out there and let them know that they're not the only ones. Everyone that is a good person, a real human being, has empathy and really does fundamentally care for what's going on in our communities, our families, our friends, the purposes that you set in front of us and the structures you've set in front of us to take care of. We fundamentally very much care about your world and what you created. And we know that we're basically just on a work visa here, traveling through this place. And someday we're going to go back home to be with you. And that's going to be a glorious day. Looking forward to that very much, quite honestly. But while we're here, we're going to make the best of the time that you've given us and ask you to give us the feet to walk the path that you said set ahead of us. Your glory is so evident when we look at the world around us, the beautiful things, and we can step out of the analysis of what's evil here and never lose our joy by looking at the good things that you built, the things that we're going to go back to when all of the corruption and the evil is cut out. And we know that you absolutely do not like it at all and you see more of it than we do, which is amazing that you haven't zapped all of us by now already. And I can thank you so very much for your grace and mercy on each and every one of us, because no one here is perfect. We've all fallen short of your glory. We've all fallen short in so many ways. And we are so grateful that you've forgiven us for the things that we've done that we shouldn't have done, as we learn to be more like you every single day. Thank you so much for every person who's willing to stand up and do the right thing, even if they're the only one. Give us all that strength and courage to do that. Thank you so much for being a great friend to us. We love you. You're amazing. And we ask this all in Jesus' precious name. We pray, amen. So there we go. Well, you have any last words here, Vicky? And then I'm going to go to that point of the show up. So my protest.
No, except just do what you can. We've got to save this country for future generations. There's no alternative.
The world goes.
Uh-huh. So anyway, I hope everybody does that. I hope they understand how serious this is. This is not just a political game. This is for all the marbles. This is for, are you going to be subjugated to the world government,
Yeah, there you go. You're going to just be cattle, just cattle to, or sheep. It's not a good place to be. So, all right, boys and girls, this is part of the show where we go to my protest for the 2022 and 2020 elections. Ding, 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 ding. Go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com, because I'm the best non-conceder who's ever not conceded in the history of the United States of America. And I want to have a discussion with the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, about it. Wearing cowboy boots. We'll see who wears them better. And also just talk about a plan here. So a plan to turn Michigan around. And that's what we're going to do. So have a wonderful day today. Know that there's a whole bunch of us out there that are fighting for this nation. We ask you to join us. Simple things you can do. Pass on good information. You can pass on all of our broadcasts and such, because nobody here gets paid. Unfortunately for everybody else out there, that's where the rubber meets the road. Are people grifting off of this, or are they doing this because of their civic duty, because they really do believe in the United States and standing with we the people? If you can't answer that question, or if you see the big dollars running into this, realize it's probably rigged, okay? Or they're part of the rig. But there are a lot of good people out there that are actually standing because we believe in this. And those are the people that we want to stand together with, not the money whores that are out there that'll do anything if you wave a buck in front of their face. No, we want the people who are the misfits, the sheepdog, the sheepdog who are going to be defending out here and look at the wolves and go, just try it. Let's see what happens. So have a great day today. I'm going to be on tomorrow with John Tater, as well as I think that Warren Carpenter will be on, and we'll show you the report that we have to show to break, I guess. This is becoming more important every day, because President Trump and the good guys are unfolding a very well organized criminal enterprise. Many, many working parts. It's like a squid. It's got tentacles everywhere. And I think what they're doing is they're exposing the tentacles, and we're going to be chopping them off so that their funding sources end. Have a great day, and realize we're going in a good direction. Have a little faith. It's going to be okay. We'll see you tomorrow.